Hi, I'm Arthur Dickens and this is my Rugby Legends podcast. In each episode, I interview an amazing rugby player or coach to get their insight and advice for young rugby players just like me who are keen to learn and get better. In this episode, I am very excited to be speaking with ex-England international winner and outside centre Lloyd. Leon played his first game for Leicester Tigers at the age of 17 and went on to play for the club 266 times over an 11-year period. He scored over 100 tries during his Test career and has represented England at every age level, making his full debut in 2000 against South Africa. After an injury ended his playing career, Leon turned his lessons and experiences from rugby into skills for business and has recently been appointed to the board of Leicester Tigers. I hope you find Leon's knowledge and wisdom as helpful as I did. Enjoy.
I am actually here with you today as a failed footballer. My speed was definitely my superpower, but I like to play football. I got asked if I would fill in and play a game on the wing for the first team when I was only 17. It's like replacing Tony Underwood because he was injured. I'm playing with all the superstars that I saw on TV. Find out the things that you're good at and work hard on those. Go from being good at those things to being really great at those things. I do not miss playing. My body's broken and sore. But what I do miss is the 5 minutes before kickoff. It's just you, your mates, the captain, we're all in a huddle, we're looking around in each other's eyes, thinking about the opposition. We can hear them walking out the corridor onto the pitch and we're there ready to go to battle against the enemy.
Leon, how did you get into rugby and how old were you when you started?
Oh, great first question. So unlike a lot of my teammates I played with, I had the privilege to play with, I am actually here with you today as a failed footballer. My dream was to be a professional football player and I played sport and I wanted to play for Coventry City and do all those wonderful things and play in FA Cup finals and everything else. But the school I went to, my senior school, didn't play football, which is unusual really, and they only played rugby. And I was sort of forced to play rugby. And every time I played, I felt like it was taking me away from being with my mates, my footballing mates. So I sort of begrudged it a little bit at the start. And I probably picked up my first rugby ball at the age 13. I didn't really know what to do with it because I didn't really understand the laws of the game, and it looked like just big people running into each other. So I tried to avoid that, but I was quite quick at running. So when I got the ball and I got given the ball, I ran through probably fear of somebody else grabbing me and putting me on the floor and standing on me. And then it's a bit like, I don't know if you've seen the movie Forrest Gump. You might be too young to have seen that movie, but I got the ball and everyone just shouted, "Run!" And I ran, and no one caught me. And then I kept running, and then people stopped, but they couldn't catch me. And then so I picked up my first ball at 13. Then I played for my school team. Then I played for Coventry, and then Warwickshire in the Midlands. I was very fortunate to play for England schoolboys at under 16s.
That's very interesting, thank you. And what position did you play in football?
Oh, I was right midfield. But again, much like my rugby, they'd kick the ball ahead and I would get to the ball quicker than anybody else. And I just wasn't very good. I didn't know what to do when I got to the ball. So I'd trip over the ball. So my speed was definitely my superpower. But I like to play football.
Thank you. And what other sports did you play growing up and what age did you give them up for rugby?
Yeah, so I was quite sporty, like I'm sure most young boys and girls are. Rugby was the sport that I didn't play. I did athletics, so I trained at Godiva Harriers, at the track at Godiva Harriers. There were some Olympians, GB Olympians, who weren't GB Olympians then at the time, but went on to win gold medal at Athens, and my friends who I trained with in the speed sprint section. I played cricket, I played basketball, I played hockey. I pretty much played all sports except for rugby, because I felt like at the time, like you just want to get out and just run around and do stuff. I didn't realise how good all those other sports were for helping with my hand-eye coordination, and ultimately aided me in becoming a rugby player, because all those little things add up. So yeah, I was very fortunate to have played lots of sports.
It's very helpful, thank you. And when did you know that you were really good at rugby?
I played with some really, really good players. So I don't think I've ever thought of myself as being really good at rugby. I've always felt of myself as someone who just feels lucky to be in the team with these really, really good players. I suppose I was always one of the better players in my team because I was quick. And then, like anything, when you move up the levels at age grade stuff, you play with other players who are the best in their school or best in their their region, and then all of a sudden you get to a point where the team you're in, everyone's good. So like at England schoolboys, for example, everyone was pretty much the best for our age group. And then I got signed for Leicester Tigers from a match. We played at Twickenham against Wales, and I got signed by Leicester Tigers there just before the game turned pro. And then I sort of moved across from Coventry. I played in the youth team to the Colts team, under 19s when I was 16. And I moved across to live with a guy called Martin Johnson when I was a youngster. Left Coventry, left home to go and live with him. And then I realised all of a sudden I'm with these superstars who, this is before they won the World Cup, before they did all that amazing stuff. You could just tell by the way they thought, the way they trained, the way they ate their food, the types of food they ate. They were really professional before the game turned pro. And I think I was privileged to be in and around that environment at such a young age. They dragged me along really and just helped me improve.
That's very interesting. Thank you. And when did you know that wing was your position? Was this your decision or did it come from a coach?
Yeah, so I played centre. I actually played centre for my schoolboy rugby all the way through. I got played for England schoolboys on the wing, and then I was playing a centre for Leicester Tigers in the youth team. And then what happened was, I was playing the youth team. I played 1 year in the youth team, the Colts, and then Tony Underwood, Rory Underwood's brother, played at Leicester, and he got injured, and I got asked if I would fill in and play a game on the wing for the first team when I was only 17. And it's like replacing Tony Underwood because he was injured, and I'm playing with all the superstars that I saw on TV. So I played in that game, and that was it. So I had the choice, really. I had the choice to either continue my development as a rugby player in the centre and go back to the youth team, the under-19s, and sort of go under-19s, under-21s, and just wait for my chance to break into the first team. Or, because there was a gap and there was an injury, and I was quite tall, and I'd played and I scored a try, I had the opportunity to say, right, do you want to stay up here in the first team, the senior squad, on the wing, or drop down to the youth team and in the centre? So for me, as a 17-year-old, it was an easy decision. I said, I'll stay here on the wing and then hopefully wait for an opportunity to showcase what I can do in the centre. So I did that. And I was fortunate that we had a coach called Joel Stransky who won a World Cup for South Africa. He came over with Bob Dwyer and he saw me play on the wing and he said, do you want to have a go in the centre, use your pace in the centre? Because we had some of the quick wingers. And then I sort of wormed my way in to the centre, I suppose, after being there for a little bit. So I sort of played a mixture of both.
Wow, thank you. And what one skill did you have to work on the hardest on?
Really good question, because I think I spent a lot of time working on skills which, if I had my time again, I wouldn't do. So I was naturally quite quick, but I worked really hard on my speed anyway, because I wanted to be quicker, obviously. I had a pretty strong handoff, a hand fend. So if someone was half tackled me, I'd be able to hand them off and get around them. So they needed to make sure if someone was going to tackle me, there'd need to be a solid tackle. I wasn't a very strong kicker of the ball, but all my teammates were. And I remember when I got into the England squad and Clive Woodward was a coach and we had a guy called Dave Aldred who was a kicking coach, everyone who I was with seemed to be really good at kicking. So I spent hours upon hours upon hours trying to work on my left-footed spiral kick. Like, bearing in mind, I'm right-footed and my right-footed kick wasn't strong. Everybody else could kick off both feet. So I spent so much time practicing my left-foot kick thinking, on that one occasion when I might need to use it, I'll have it in my locker. And guess what? It never came about. I never needed to use it. So I wasted hours and hours working on a skill that I didn't need. So I think if I had my time again, and what I say to younger players are, what are you good at? Like, find out the things that you're good at and work hard on those. So go from being good at those things to being really great at those things. And yes, improve your all-round game, but there are some skills that you're likely not to need. And for me, that was drilling a left-footed 50-meter spiral kick. Although in my head or on the computer, it would look great, but in reality, I was never called upon. So yeah, I wasted those hours.
It's like you said, that's exactly what Dan Villa said. It says, instead of being good, make them your superpower.
Oh, great. Yeah, absolutely. And he's a great one to talk about that, right? So pick the thing that you like, you're good at doing, and you're slightly better than everybody else, and just work really hard on that so you get known for that, as opposed to being a good all-round player, be an amazing whatever player you want to be, like amazing finisher or amazing creative player or amazing tackler, and then the other bits will come anyway.
Thank you. And when did you know you were going to make it professional?
I signed my first pro contract at 16, and then, just as the game turned pro. But I always felt like I was always the youngest in the team by a good few years, until the likes of Lewis Moody and Jordan Murphy came in a little bit later, who were my age group. But Leicester didn't really change the team much back then. Even players who'd been in the team for decades, even if they had a broken leg, they'd probably still get picked because there was that they didn't want to give up their shirt. So I always felt like, when selection was made, I always had this anxiety thinking, oh, am I going to get picked? I never really felt like my position was secure. And I don't know if that was because of the competitiveness of the club and the culture, or my own insecurities or my own desire just to try and be the best I can be. But I think every time I could play at a weekend and score a hat-trick and get man of the match. And then also I'd wait for selection and think, is my name going to get read out? I just thought, I never expected it. I never took it for granted. I always appreciated the opportunity that I had. So I just felt like I was living the dream. It didn't feel like a job. It felt like I was, getting paid to hang around my mates and, drive nice cars and be on TV.
Very helpful, thank you. And you made your debut for Leicester, aged just 17. How scary was that? And how did you manage those fears?
I remember it like it was yesterday. I was in the car park. So we trained. It was a Thursday night. So it wasn't a league debut. My first debut was playing against Rugby Lions. And we were in the car park on a Thursday night, and I'd already just played with the Colts team. So I'd already done a Thursday session getting ready for the match on Saturday. And the boss at the time was a guy called Tony Russ. And he walked out into the car park, and I was about to go and watch Neil Back, who's a former World Cup winner, British Lion. I'm sure you know who he is. And he used to drive me, when I first went to Leicester, he used to drive me over from Coventry. And I was going to go and watch Backy in the first team play against Rugby. And Tony Russ walked out and said, Tony Underwood's just got injured. We were players short. And Backy went, Lloyd will play, he's got his boots. And literally, people talk about right time, right place. I was there. Backy didn't know I'd just done a pretty hard session, but I did have my boots, and I'd just done a hard training session. And Tony looked at me and went, have you got your boots? I don't even think he knew my name. And I went, really scared. I went, yes. And I jumped in the car, went over with Backy, got into the changing room, and I remember I sat on the floor, right? So walked the change, I walked through the door. No one was expecting me to play because I wasn't in the team. And there's Dean Richards and Adal Cardooni and John Liley and Rory Underwood and Stuart Potter and all these players which were the first team up here on the hierarchy. And I walk in with Backy. I think they must have thought I was just carrying his boots or something. And I walked in and there was no spare seats to sit down. So I didn't want to ask someone to move. So I just sat down on the floor and got changed on the floor in the corner. And then the game kicked off. I didn't have enough time to prepare for it because it was literally, you're playing in 2 hours' time. It'd have been a bit different if I'd have had to, a week to the countdown. But it happened so quickly. Thankfully, I got the ball early on in that game and scored a try to settle my nerves through fear, I suppose, of playing against men. But yeah, that was the opening for me. And it was right time, right place, and just having that opportunity and just taking that opportunity.
Oh, that's very interesting. Thank you. And you played against a giant, Jonah Lomu. What advice do you have for players like me who are on the smaller side of this sport full of big lads?
Yeah. Wow, the legend that is Jonah Lomu. Remember the computer game that was around as well. He was anything in life, whether you're in, sport or business or whatever it might be, you want to test yourself against the best people. And there's no bigger test than playing against Jonah Lomu, one of the greatest players, the game has ever seen. But it's also quite daunting. I played against him a couple of times, and the first time I was playing for England against him at Twickenham, and I was nervous because you make a mistake against someone like that, and it could be career defining. A lot of people have played against him and never played again, especially at international level. But the good thing about me is, I would much rather play against someone big like Jonah Lomu than someone smaller like yourself, who's quicker. So if I compare someone like Jonah Lomu to a Jason Robinson type player, I would much rather play against Jonah Lomu than Jason Robinson, because you've got to be brave to play rugby, and bravery, you can't coach bravery really. So I knew that Jonah Lomu, I was always going to try and hit him and go and try and tackle him all the time. However, a smaller, faster player who's sidestepping all over the place, I might be made look stupid. So I might even be able to get hands on him. So I knew at least there's a chance if I get stuck in Jonah's legs, he might fall over. he might trip over me and might come down. So I suppose my advice would be is work on your technique, go low, because I'm sure you've heard the phrase, they can't run without their legs. Go, no matter how big somebody is, if you grab hold of their legs and screw them together, they have to come down. And that comes down to just technique and being brave and, putting your head in the right place, and just approach it that way rather than thinking, I might get injured here, so I'm going to go in half-hearted.
That's very helpful. Thank you. And an injury put a stop to your playing career. How did you deal with such a big setback? What did you learn from?
Yeah, not very well. I didn't do it very well, if I'm honest. I retired at 30, and bearing in mind that, as I said before, I signed pro at 16. That's a long time to be playing. But in reality, 30, you're still a young man. You're still at the very early stage. You've still got a lot of work and life to do. I think the reason why I struggled with it so much was because a lot of my teammates were still playing. And in your mind, you romanticize about it, or you think, oh, when we finish playing, we'll all go off and we'll all go and play golf together. We'll all go and do this together. We'll go on holiday. We'll have so much fun. But the reality is, you retire on your own. But you don't retire en masse, and it's when you go, you don't really. The sport decides, when it's had enough of you. When if you have an injury, so you sort of limp out of the sport, out the back door, as opposed to going out. Not very many people leave on their own terms. After winning a World Cup, like Martin Johnson, for example, lifting the World Cup, and then you leave. What a great way to leave the sport. Right, that's in movies and fairy tales, but in reality, that's not always how it works. So I think I struggled with my transition out of sport, because I thought that I'd put lots of things in place, and to be fair, I had put lots of things in place because I'd worked in different areas of business whilst I was still playing, because I was passionate about that. However, and you'll get this, Arthur, when you're part of a team and and it's such a tight knit team, you feel like it's awesome, it's your mates. What was really difficult for me was that team still carrying on when I was no longer in the team. So what I mean by that is I didn't want them to lose, but I wanted them to miss me. I wanted them to go, oh, no, it's not quite the same without Lloydie. But they don't, and they didn't, because you realise you were such a small part of a big machine, and they have to carry on because they've got another game on Saturday and another game on this week after, and then you sort of just fade away into the background. So it's quite difficult to get your head around that when you've given everything to your sport, then all of a sudden being on the outside looking in. But that's the nature of the sport. That will never change. I just think maybe people can prepare better for that identity piece.
It's very helpful. And what do you miss most about playing rugby?
Really easy to answer that. The lads, the playing, the training, the pre-season training where you don't want to do it, but you're going to go through shared pain together of going through that stuff, and then the winning, even the losing, right? The winning and the losing, all of that is life skills that you are developing, and you don't realize at the time, but they're so valuable. But doing it with your mates week in, week out is a real privilege. And if I look back on my career now, people ask me all the time, do you miss playing? And I say, absolutely not. I do not miss playing. My body's broken and sore. But what I do miss is the 5 minutes before kickoff, when the changing room gets emptied, the coaches leave, and it's just you, your mates, the captain, we're all in a huddle, we're looking around in each other's eyes, thinking about the opposition. We can hear them walking out the corridor onto the pitch, and we're there ready to go to battle against the enemy. And I sort of dramatize it a little bit, but that's how we felt, that's how we approached it. So I missed that bit, that feeling where the hair on the back of your neck stands up because you're going out to that contest with your friends. Then the game's a game, 80 minutes is 80 minutes. So I don't miss that bit, but I do miss when the final whistle's gone and I look around at my mates and they've all got blood and stitches and all snot and all messy and everything else. I didn't, by the way. I kept myself clean and away from all that rubbish. But they're all in a mess, and I look around and we look at each other in the changing room. We look at each other in the eye and we say, "Great, same again next week." And that's pretty much what we did. We did that Saturday to Saturday, same again next week. And I think that's what I miss. When you're all on that shared journey, going together.
It's very helpful. And who's the best player you've played with or against?
I've mentioned Jonah Lomu. Obviously, he's a global superstar. I've actually already mentioned two people, Neil Back, who drove me over to Leicester, and sort of he shaped the way I approach my personal life, professional life, everything else with a dedication. I lived with Martin Johnson, so that absolutely shaped who I was and my accountability as a human being. Well, the person I haven't mentioned, Jordan Murphy. Jordan Murphy is one of the most talented players I've played with, because the size of him is built like, his nickname was the pencil. And that was because he was the size of a pencil. Like, he was really small. But he was so brave. He was so skillful and so talented. And anytime if I was picking a team, I'd pick his name. His name would be on the sheet. So, very lucky to have played against those, played with or against those guys. So, yeah, so it'd be tough to pick one because they've all got different things. They've all got different skills and attributes. But I'd like to make a player made up of all those people. That would be a super player, wouldn't it?
Thank you. And what wisdom do you have now that you wished you had at the age of 17?
So I think when I was playing, I lived in the moment. So if I played on a Saturday, and I said before, I felt privileged to be there. If I didn't play very well, I'd go home and I'd watch the game on TV or I'd read the match report, and then I'd sort of like be down in the dumps and wait to try and put it right during training on the next weekend. I suppose if I had my time again, what I've realised now is, as awesome as being a professional rugby player is, it is your job, and we as individuals, as human beings, we are more than our jobs. So I think I'd probably cut myself some slack a little bit, not take everything so personal, and be so focused, and try and have a little. Yes, I did have fun. I absolutely had loads of fun, but we celebrated fun when we won trophies, and there were lots of other times when we could have celebrated more. Because it's not always just about winning trophies. Yes, we won. Oh God, I think I won 11 trophies with the Tigers when I was there, and lost in 5 finals. So that's a lot of. If you think about your career, there are good high points and a few low points, but there's also lots of other points in your career which you can celebrate. And I think I was so focused on trying to be the best I could be that I think maybe if I had my time again, I'd relax a little bit more, or certainly pick points in the season where I could let my hair down, even though I haven't got much hair.
And based on your experience, what would you say makes a great team?
I think accountability. So I don't need my teammates to tell me when I make a mistake, or the video analysis, or my coach. Is just owning your mistakes. I think that's really important. I need to be able to trust my teammates, and they need to be able to trust me that I am doing the right thing for the team. No one person is bigger than the team. So I think understanding that the role that you play within that team is hugely, hugely important. I do a lot of work in my day job now is talking about teamwork and culture and how important that is. And I talk about celebrating other people's roles. So what I mean by that is the way I played the game. I was very fortunate to have scored, quite a lot of tries. So people may assume that I'm the match winner, the person who won the match. But in reality, it's not about me. It's never about me, because other people need to do their job to be able to win the ball, to create the space, to make the right decision, for me to then do the easy job and put the ball down. So I think understanding your role within any team, but also appreciating other people's roles in that team is really, really important. So the guys and girls who play that don't get the bottle of champagne or the player of the match, they're just as important, sometimes even more important, and they can often be invisible because you don't see them, scoring or the champagne moment. So I think a great team recognises everybody else's roles and contributions.
What is the best piece of advice that coaches gave you?
Well, I tell you, the worst piece of advice was go and practice kicking with your left foot for hours and hours and hours. Best piece of advice, I think I got it towards the end of my career, which was what you say. Dan Biggins said the same thing about find your superpower. Find your strengths, then work really hard on these strengths to make them superpowers. And I think I've got that later in my career. And I wish I'd known that, or focus on that a bit more, rather than trying to bring my level up, trying to be as good a kicker as Johnny Wilkinson. It's never going to happen. Trying to do things as good as other players. I think you have to understand what you bring to the team and do that to the best of your ability. And I think that was great advice I got.
Thank you. And on the rugby pitch, what was the one position you would rely on the most?
I'd rely on, although it's not a glamorous position, if you haven't got a strong tight head prop, then you can't win the ball, right? And we had good, strong, tight head props, although I never really appreciated it until afterwards. You realise when you haven't got a strong prop or front row set of forwards, when you're not winning the ball, why you're not winning the matches. But the glamorous positions, you'd rely on your scrum half or your fly half. They're the sort of the flashy players who don't get their kit dirty. They're ones who've got the brains and make the good decisions. So you need to have those people to make the right calls, but equally you need the hard and ugly forwards to front up and win you the ball, because there's a famous saying, forwards decide who win the game and backs decide by how many. And if you haven't got a forward pack that can win you the ball or secure the game, then it doesn't matter how good your backs are, they're never going to be able to play. So I'll definitely say the forwards, although hopefully they won't see this and they won't know that I'm giving that credit, that kudos. But yeah, the forwards are really important.
It's very helpful. Thank you. And last question. What was your favourite moment of your career?
I was very fortunate to have played in the European Cup final in 2001 at Stade Francais in Paris, away from home. And I scored in that final, which was amazing. As a boy, my dream was to score the winning goal for Coventry City. Now, all of a sudden, I'm 20, 21, and I'm scoring a try in the European Cup final for Leicester Tigers against Stade Francais. But not only that, I managed to score a second try in that match, and it was the match-winning try in injury time. So it's stuff that you dream of, or certainly I dreamt of as a boy. To be able to do that with my team, with my mates, was just, to this day, just amazing, because when we see each other, we all laugh and smile about all the stuff that we did after that and all the hard work that we put in for that game. And yeah, I think that for me is a real standout moment in my career.
Wow, thank you. And I really appreciate taking the time to be on the podcast. And who would be the one person you'd recommend to be on a podcast?
I want to name somebody that's going to say that Leon was an amazing player and taught me up. I can't think of many people who are going to say that. I would say Jordan Murphy, because I've given him some kudos on this, or Lewis Moody. Again, both great international players, two of my best mates, and play for their country, play for the Lions, and they're good eggs. And hopefully they won't share any stories about me where they'll say that I didn't do the things I said I've done, and they taught me up as their most favourite player.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate taking your time to be on my podcast. Thank you, Leon.
Hey, my pleasure. Great questions as well. Thank you very much. Trip down the memory lane for me. Thank you.